Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Melissa and I'm a nursing student. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a very important topic, and that is bullying in the nursing world. So both bullying in the profession and bullying in nursing school. Unfortunately, bullying is a part of nursing and nursing school, and I feel like it's not talked about as much as it should be. In recent years, I feel like it is being talked about more, which is a good thing, as people are going online, sharing their personal experiences. Many of you guys may also be familiar with the saying, nurses eat their young. And that is referring to veteran nurses kind of bullying or hazing new grad nurses. So nurses eating their young fresh out of school, going into the workforce, or getting bullied by the veteran nurses. And outside of that very specific scenario, I feel like bullying overall just kind of isn't talked about as much as it needs to be in order to address the problem, especially in nursing school. And there are a couple of reasons why I feel like it's still kind of taboo to talk about bullying in the nursing world. For one thing, I feel like nursing is a very noble profession. Nurses save lives, nurses help people. I feel like when people think of nurses, they think of automatically just a good, caring, nurturing person. And so I feel like when you speak out about bullying with nurses or within the nursing world, it can kind of seem like you are attacking people or someone who is supposed to be inherently good. And so I feel like that's just kind of seen as taboo. Whenever I see like a post online talking about this nurse was mean to me, or I've experienced mean nurses, for every comment I see like that, I honestly will see like a dozen comments underneath it kind of attacking that person for sharing their experience, as if it's not possible for a nurse to bully somebody or to be mean. And then another reason why I feel like it's probably taboo is because in recent years, I feel like there has been a really strong push for women to support women and for women to be supportive of other women. And I think that that is incredible. But the downside of that is nursing is a predominantly female profession. Mostly women are nurses. Of course, there are exceptions. Men can be nurses too, but majority of nurses and those of us in the nursing world are women. And so if you are addressing an issue where you're saying that there's bullying going on in nursing, that could kind of be seen as you tearing down other women or targeting the profession of nursing because it's predominantly women. And I feel like those two reasons alone kind of make it taboo to talk about bullying. But unfortunately, not talking about it doesn't make it just go away. So in this video, I want to address this topic. So I feel like with bullying in general, as an adult, bullying looks so much different than it does with children. When children are bullying each other, it's kind of more simple. Often it's name calling, it's picking on somebody. Sometimes it can get physical, but with adults, it can be so much more insidious. So it can be just like children where someone is yelling at you or name calling and things like that. But as adults and in the professional world, it can be so subtle that you may not even realize that it's happening to you. So with nursing specifically, bullying can look like your scheduler giving you like the crappy shifts habitually and not giving other people the crappy shifts. It could be your PTO not being granted even though you've given enough notice and you feel like it should be granted. You may not even take off time a lot, so there's really no reason for your supervisor or for the scheduler to not be granting your PTO. Honestly, it could look like the silent treatment. I know that sounds crazy, but nurses can give each other the silent treatment when they're working at the bedside with each other. It could be other nurses ignoring you. It could be people being kind of hot and cold. So you talk to somebody one day and they're friendly, and then the next time that you go to talk to them, they're really mean, kind of aggressive with you. So it makes you nervous. So when you're going into work and you're going to go talk to this person, you don't know which version of them you're going to get. And then that creates anxiety within you. It can be people starting rumors about you, people saying that you are incompetent or that you're doing things wrong. It can be people placing blame on you, somebody doing something wrong themselves and then putting the fault on you. And honestly, there's so many reasons that bullying happens in the workplace. It could be jealousy. Maybe someone's jealous that you got the promotion that they wanted. It could be insecurities. Someone is insecure and they look at you and they feel insecure, and so they want to tear you down to feel better about themselves. It could honestly just be that somebody just doesn't like you. You know, not everyone's going to like you. You're not going to like everybody. But in a professional space, you could at least be cordial with each other. Some people are immature, and if they don't like you, instead of just keeping it professional, they have to go the extra mile and be mean to you and bully you, unfortunately. So now, moving away from the bedside and going into nursing school, bullying can be everything that I just mentioned. Plus, it can be gossiping. It can be people making snarky remarks underneath their breath, so the people around you guys can't hear, but you hear it and it offends you. It could be people pressuring you to help them with their assignments when you don't feel comfortable doing that, but they make you feel obligated to do so. It can be people kind of snickering when you enter into a room. It can be people snickering when you raise your hand in class to ask a question, or people sighing really loudly when you are raising your hand to ask a question. So things like that, they may seem subtle, they may seem insidious, but that, in my opinion, that would classify as bullying. And I kind of hate to say it, but with nursing specifically, because we're all adults, whether you're in nursing school or whether you're in the profession, we are all adults. And to make it into nursing school, to make it into this profession, I feel like we are all very intelligent. You have to have a level of intelligence to even be accepted into nursing school. So because you have adults that are highly intelligent, more often than not, when I've witnessed bullying in the hospital or in healthcare settings or in school, it's typically very subtle, to the point where if someone's getting bullied, if they were to complain about it, they could easily be told that they're making a big deal out of it, or other people may not even notice that it's going on because it's so sneaky when it's happening. And to be honest, I have seen students bullying students. I've seen teachers bullying students. I've seen students bullying teachers. I've seen teachers bullying each other. I've seen nurses on the units bullying each other. I've seen nurses bullying nursing students. It's just, it's unfortunately a part of the culture in a weird way. So from my personal experience with bullying, I am extremely fortunate. Throughout my childhood, I was never bullied. I can't think of a single instance where I was bullied growing up. I know I'm very lucky, but I've had two, I would say, very prominent and influential bullies in my life, and both were actually in adulthood. One was not a nurse, but if you've seen my previous videos, then you know that I have a background in healthcare administration. I have a degree in healthcare administration, and I've worked in healthcare administration for many years at this point. And when I was working at a healthcare organization in administration, I was bullied by one of my coworkers heavily. And then my second bully was not anybody that I interacted with on a professional level. It was more so in my private life. But ironically, she did happen to be a nurse. And so the two of those women, they were both women, those were my only two experiences with bullies, but it affected me so much. And so I know firsthand that when someone is bullying you, one, it doesn't have to be physical, and it doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't have to be somebody yelling at you, although they did. But it's oftentimes, when you're dealing with adults in a professional setting, it's often subtle. It's very subtle, but that doesn't mean that it's any less real, and it doesn't mean that it hurts any less. Specifically with the bully that I worked with, my coworker, we shared an office, and I remember I was very close to quitting. I used to go home and cry every day after work. I used to feel physically ill and nauseous, and there were a couple of instances, or a couple of times, when I actually physically got sick before going into work. It affected me so much, and it affected the quality of my work. I literally was not able to function because I was so anxious having to interact with this person, and I wasn't sure what version of her I was going to get. I wasn't sure what she was going to say to me, what rumors she was going to start about me. And I feel like when you are in a work environment that's awful, I can't imagine going through that when you were at school, because then that affects the quality of your homework and it would affect your grades. So what to do if you unfortunately are being bullied? Okay, so the very first thing that you should do to combat bullying, which I think is the most important thing by far, is to be proactive. Do not make yourself an easy target for a bully. And so what I mean by this is the very first time that somebody tries you, shut it down immediately. Even if you are not a confrontational person, even if you're somebody who, because I know that confrontation really makes people anxious, or some people are just shy, you don't have to be confrontational or aggressive to shut down somebody when they are trying you. So for example, if somebody makes a snarky comment underneath their breath toward you, you can very calmly and nicely say, hey, I didn't hear you, can you speak up? Or hey, can you repeat that? I didn't catch that. And honestly, that will just put them on the spot. Or if somebody laughs when you walk into a room, again, they may not be talking about you, so you can just very innocently be like, oh, what's so funny? Did you just tell a joke? Like, can I hear it? If somebody makes a joke at your expense, you know those passive aggressive jokes that are like, they're really a dig at you, but if you were to call somebody out on it, they would be like, oh, I was just joking, you're sensitive. Those types of jokes. If somebody makes a joke, you can just very calmly with a straight face say, I don't get it. Can you explain it? What's so funny about that? I don't get it. Stuff like that will just kind of put somebody on the spot when they're trying you, and it could honestly embarrass them and make them retreat. If you're in a professional setting, this happens all of the time, and I don't know why, but if it's first thing in the morning, someone or people are trying to give you the silent treatment, you maybe walk into an elevator or you walk onto a unit and you say good morning and people ignore you or they don't say good morning back. Again, very nicely and very calmly, just say, hey, I said good morning and you didn't acknowledge me. Are you okay? You look like you're like a million miles away. Are you doing okay? Are you thinking about something? Is everything going okay with you? I'm a little concerned. So it's you coming from a nice place. Again, you're not being aggressive, you're not being confrontational, but you're letting that person know you're not the one to try it with. So if you clicked on this video and you are watching this video because you are currently experiencing some type of bullying and you've already let it slide and it's too late for you to do step one, or what I just mentioned that you should do, and not let it even happen in the first place. So let's say it's already been happening and you're looking for a way to end it. It's never too late. Just because someone was trying you in the past, you can, starting today, starting right after you watch this video, you can start addressing it in the moment. I feel like that's the best thing that you can do. Again, you're putting the bully on the spot and you're catching them off guard. If anything, I feel like if you've allowed it to go on for a certain point in time and you kind of one day randomly start putting an end to it and shutting it down, to me, I feel like that could honestly be more intimidating than you stopping it from day one. Because in the bully's mind, they could be like, what has gotten into her or what's gotten into him that they're not allowing me to do this anymore? So if someone is asking you for the answers to homework or asking you to help with their homework and you've been doing it up until now, next time that they ask you, say, I don't really feel comfortable doing that anymore. Or you can say, I worked really hard on this assignment and I don't really feel like helping you out. I'm sorry. If you are extremely non-confrontational and you don't even feel comfortable saying that, you can kind of go a different approach. And if someone's asking you for help with their homework, you can just kind of blow them off. If they're texting you, don't answer the text message. And then the next day or the next time that you see them, just be like, oh, I was really busy. Sorry. And kind of keep doing that until the assignment is due, and they're either going to have to figure it out for themselves or they're going to have to find somebody else to ask. But moving forward, they're going to know at the very least you are no longer a reliable source for them to use anymore. Now, if you have already started being bullied and it's been going on for some time now, I would advise you to start documenting it if you have not already. And I'm going to explain what I mean by documenting, because right out of college, my very first job, I wasn't experiencing a bully, but there was a toxic work environment. And I had some incredible mentors at that job that were older than me. And so they would always pull me aside and be like, make sure you're documenting everything that's happening. And I know it sounds so silly. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I was just slow. but when I was like fresh out of college and people were telling me to document the things that were happening, I didn't know how to document it. I was like, do I pull up a Word document? Like what am I documenting specifically? So if you are not sure what to document, if somebody says something rude to you, especially if it's someone in a position of power, if you are like in a work environment at the hospital or a healthcare setting and it's your supervisor or your scheduler or your boss, you should absolutely be documenting any type of inappropriate behavior or any type of bullying. If you are in the classroom, if it is a professor or even the dean, you should absolutely be documenting it. And if you're in a professional setting and it's a coworker that's equally on your level, you should still document. If you are a nursing student and it's another student, I still feel like it's important to document. It's important to have documentation and never need it than to one day need it and not have it. So when I say document, it can be anything from you literally getting a notebook and a pen and just writing down things that are happening or things that are said. It could be you creating a Word document. It does not have to be fancy. It doesn't need to be super neat, but it's just a timeline of events so that if there's any type of progression in the bullying or harassment, that can all be documented. So you should document what was said to you or what was done to you. You should document how it made you feel and how it impacted either your work, your performance, or even just your emotional state. You should document the date that it happened. If you can document the time that it happened or the events leading up to it, that would also be amazing. The more detail that you have, the better. And I would also advise you to document the names of anybody that was in the room or that may have heard or witnessed what happened to you. Even if you don't want to cause trouble, or even if you don't have any intentions of showing this to anybody, like you don't want to go to HR if you're in a professional setting, or you don't want to go to your professor or the dean if you are in an academic setting, it's good to have the documentation, just because in the future you may change your mind and then it's really, really hard to recall exactly what happened and what date things happened in the moment once you're worked up or once you decide to actually kind of go and move forward with reporting the behavior. And then another thing, unfortunately, that it has happened to me and I've seen it happen a million times, somebody can be bullying you and then some type of escalation can happen. Maybe one day you're just not in the mood for it, or just literally anything can happen. And the person that was bullying you can then go to an authority figure and flip things around and say that you are the one that was bullying them. And if that ever happens, you want to make sure that you have documentation so that you can prove that was actually not what happened. I have the dates and the times that things were happening to me. So even though it would unfortunately in that situation be a he said, she said, or she said, at least you have some type of documentation so you're not just completely caught off guard. Now, the next thing that I would advise you to do if you are being bullied in the nursing world is to confront your bully if you feel safe to do so. Unfortunately, and like I said, I know from firsthand experience just working in healthcare, unfortunately, environments can be so toxic and your bully can be so toxic that if you confront them, even in the nicest, most passive, least aggressive way, they can come back at you 10 times harder. They can start bullying you harder. They can get 10 times more aggressive. Things could unfortunately just get worse for you. So you know your situation better than anybody. So if you feel safe to confront your bully, I would advise you to pull them aside in a professional manner and say, hey, I noticed that there's some tension between us, or when you talk to me or when you do X, Y, and Z, I feel bad. If you feel like that will be productive for you, I would advise you to try that. If you don't feel like that would be productive for you, I would advise you to go to your HR department or your supervisor if you feel like either of those options would be safe and productive for you to do. Now, just because you're going to a supervisor or HR does not necessarily mean that you are filling out a formal complaint. It could just be you having somebody to talk to and just letting somebody know, hey, this is going on. Unfortunately, when bullying happens in a professional environment, even if it is one person bullying another, from the outside perspective, so from the perspective of your coworkers or your classmates or your professors, it could look like it's a back and forth thing of the both of you being unprofessional when that's not the case. So I would advise you, if you don't feel safe confronting your bully, if you don't think that it'll de-escalate the situation and it'll just make things worse, I would advise you to go to some type of authority figure. Again, even if it's not a formal complaint that is documented, you could ask them, hey, I would like this to be off the record, but I'm having a really hard time with so-and-so. I feel like so-and-so is picking on me. These are the things that they're doing. This is how it's making me feel. That way, again, it's not an official form of documentation because you're not writing it down, but it is a way for you to kind of leave a footprint of what is happening. That way, if down the line stuff hits the fan, things go wrong, at least the person, whether it's the person in HR or your supervisor, the person in an authoritative role will know, hey, this person came to me months ago and told me that they were being bullied, and so I'm more inclined to believe their side of the story. Now, the very last thing that I would advise, and this is a last resort if all the other options do not work, if you were able to get out of an environment where you were dealing with a bully or bullies, get out of that environment as soon as possible. If you were trying things to mediate the situation or to improve them and they are either not changing or they're getting worse, if you were able to leave, whether that's a job, whether that is a classroom setting where you can transfer classes, whether that's a clinical environment where you are partnered with a nurse, as a student you're partnered with a nurse that's bullying you, talk to your instructor and ask if you can be paired with a different nurse. Do whatever you can if you were able to get out of that environment. I have seen way too often, I've seen students stay in classrooms when they had the option of transferring classes, and I have seen nurses stay in healthcare settings when there is a nationwide bedside nursing shortage, but because of pride, because I was here first, because of so many different reasons, they've decided to stay in a toxic work environment where they were being bullied. Every single time I have seen it, I personally feel like it was not worth it for them to have done that. If you are bullied, if it gets to a certain point, in my opinion, it's not worth your mental health. It's not worth your psychological health. It's not worth your physical health, because sometimes those things can affect you physically. So I would say swallow your pride and try to get out of that situation if you're trying to mediate it and absolutely nothing is working. So those are all my tips for how to deal with and stop bullying if you are a nurse or a nursing student or you're just in the nursing world. Really, I feel like they're applicable if you were in any profession, but just some food for thought. If you are being bullied or if you have been bullied, I just want to say it's not something to be embarrassed about. I know it can feel embarrassing, whether you are someone who's not confrontational or like me. I feel like I am a very assertive person, and like I said, I was not bullied at all through my childhood. So to be bullied in adulthood when you are like someone who's kind of like strong and assertive, it can honestly feel really embarrassing to admit. It can feel embarrassing to admit that someone else has this power over you, that they're getting to you. It can make you feel weak, but you're not a weak person. Sometimes people bully other people because they have something going on in their personal life and they're taking it out on the first person that they see, and that unfortunately just happens to be you. Sometimes, like I mentioned, it could be that somebody just doesn't like you. We're not all going to get along with each other. That's just life, unfortunately. And instead of being mature about it and just keeping things professional, they're going that extra mile to bully you and to make you feel bad. It could be because you are a really nice person and the bully just sees that as weakness, which it's not. Especially if you're a nurse, being nice is a strength and having compassion is a strength. So for somebody to see that as a reason to bully you says more about them and probably speaks to the fact that they should not be in this profession. Sometimes people are genuinely jealous of you. It sounds petty, but sometimes if you are pretty, if people like you, tearing you down will make them feel better because it makes you less than them in their minds. Some people honestly have personality disorders like narcissism, and seeing you, sometimes if you are the strongest person in the room, that is who they go for because it makes them feel stronger to take you down. There's so many different factors why somebody could be bullying you, most of which have nothing to do with you. So It's not something to be embarrassed about if you're targeted by a bully. It's not something to be embarrassed about if it's affecting you. That just means that you are human, and probably that you're an empathetic person, which I feel like is something that's a benefit in the nursing profession. So if you are watching this video, if you're going through something, my heart goes out to you. Always feel free to email me down below. People email me about all sorts of things, most of which is obviously related to nursing. Sometimes people email me about private stuff. I always answer. So if you ever need somebody to talk to and you don't feel comfortable commenting down below, I will go ahead and put my email in the description box. Thank you guys so much for watching if you made it to the end of this video, and I will see you in my next video.